Welcome to Child Abuse Awareness with Darlene J. Clark.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Child Abuse Awareness with Darlene J. Clark. Be a part of the solution instead of part of the problem. Well, he's having computer trouble, so I got him on the phone thing. So I'm hoping that y'all be able to hear him pretty well. Hello, Charles. You said that about the Child Protective Services scandal is what we're going over today. I wanted to tell everybody who's in these pictures on the screen. This is John Ramsey, that's on the far left. Beside him is Ed Bentley Jr. Then below him is John Andrew Ramsey. There's a purpose why he's on here, and that he will let you know. And then there's Randall Bentley that's causing okay, it's causing Charles a lot of trouble. So what are y'all doing now?
Well, he's got me in here, I believe.
I don't know.
Well, that's just YouTube. Yeah, it's not the live stream.
Okay,
But,
yeah, yeah. He's gonna try to go ahead and still get on. So he's in YouTube right now.
yeah, he finally got into it. He's just trying to get into the live stream now.
Okay, let me give the link to the live stream right quick. Okay, send that to y'all right quick. Hey, Mr. L, good to see you. Okay, I just sent the link right there. Make sure you
You're
got.
supposed to do it on the YouTube.
So he's trying to get on YouTube, y'all. So y'all be patient, please. So right beside John Andrew and the bottom left is Randall Bentley. He's a Bentley and Bentley law firm, and he's still causing Charles Rogers a lot of trouble. Nancy Schaefer, she was a congresswoman who tried to speak up. She found out about the Child Protective Services doing things with our kids. And she ended up shot and killed as well as her husband did. Richard Jewell ended up deceased as well. Then there's Beth Ramsey. There's a reason why he's wanting to talk about that, and this is added with the Child Protective Services scandal, as well as Matt Darrington. Okay, so where y'all at now?
Well, my mic's working over here.
Yeah, but I just don't have you. Yeah, but I just don't have you sit over here. I don't have the present thing right here where you accepted to come on in, so I could click on it to get you in here.
Well, apparently it didn't work. We'll just do it by phone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to show people something right quick, a few things as well, because the fact is that from hero to suspect, this right here is Richard Jewell. This is where he was, somebody wrote a book on him, and he was not really involved with the Olympic bombing over there in Atlanta, Georgia. He got charged, he got accused of it and everything. He was actually a hero. And he's actually known as who else? What's his original name?
Rick White.
Rick White.
Yes, ma'am.
So what made it change that name?
Well, if that was his birth name, his stepdad adopted him after he married his mother, and he had a drinking problem and was abusive toward Rick's mother. On up until Rick was old enough to defend his mother one night when he got drunk. So, of course, they wound up divorced, and Rick wanted wanted to go back to his, birth name after we had our meeting with Louis Freeh, who was the director of the FBI during the 1990s. We met at the U.S. courthouse when Eric Rudolph entered his negotiated pleas to return to Atlanta and plead guilty to the attack on Centennial Park.
Yes.
And that's when I actually first got to meet Rick and tried to apologize to him for him having to go through the turmoil that he went through for us to, keep the media attention diverted away from Murphy, North Carolina, because Rick never was a suspect. It was just our diversion of the media because the terrorists wanted to get media attention focused on Murphy, North Carolina after the attack on Centennial Park. And of course, they had postponed the attack on the park from the 25th of July to my daughter's birthday, which was the only term that I would consider to undertake such a case. And wouldn't be for the FBI, but would be for the state of North Carolina instead, since there was a hydrogen bomb involved in special circumstances involved in the investigation. Is why I was commissioned on July the 30th, 1996 for the state of North Carolina over the Oklahoma City and Centennial Park bombings case. So they're the same case. So what I want to do is kind of do a little bit of background about the story that we had covered previously about the two black teenagers.
And so that's where the Ed Bentley picture comes into effect, but it was his barn, right?
Well, yes, it was his dad was still alive at the time, George Bentley Sr., and of course we call Junior Ed by his middle name. His Blackjack Stables is what it's been listed as on the business records of Cobb County. And it borders the city limits in the county, Barnes Mill Road, between Barnes Mill Road and the 120 loop there in Marietta, called North Marietta Parkway today. And you remember we had covered the stuff that had resulted in a court settlement between George Bentley and my dad in 1979 and into 1980, to where they had to go in and destroy the barns, including that concrete barn. You reminded me, and of course the concrete horse stables, they had to be destroyed.
Could I ask? Hold on,
as part of the agreement.
Hold on a minute. I'll make sure everybody can hear y'all. Can y'all hear him okay? So keep talking now, so we'll see if they can. Okay. Have y'all been able to hear him? Please put a 1 in there if you can. Or yes. Go ahead, Charles. Thank you, Chris.
But there was a huge settlement I was supposed to receive in July 1st of 1996, which included 6 acres of land, Bentley Lake Farm, with a house that was habitable, and of course $450,000 cash that I was to receive in 1996. And of course, after the birth of John Bonet, Beth Ramsey, she started coming around her dad a whole lot more than what she did, before her birth. So she would frequent Marietta more often and help Patsy, take care of John Bonet. And that's when she started, hearing some of her dad's phone conversations, some of his discussions with his buddies and colleagues in his studio. There at his house in Marietta, if I remember correctly. He also had a house in Buckhead. I think he may have purchased, maybe after he purchased a home in Boulder. But he purchased a home in Boulder back in 1990 or 1991. They had already purchased it.
Okay.
But Beth found out about that lawsuit and the settlement, and that they had offered my brother Fred the $450,000 to execute me, to where they wouldn't have to give up any of the land or the house to me by July 1st, 1996. So she found out everything about me just by listening to her dad and his conversations on the phone and with his friends and colleagues and all that. So I had already taken a direct sales job. I got snookered into the vacuum cleaner sales trade through my Uncle Morris Beach. And really, in a way, kind of by my brother Fred.
So it's that's the one who adopted that other beach guy, right?
No, ma'am. That was my Uncle James that adopted Robert, his stepson, and his two siblings.
Okay, gotcha.
That was my Uncle James. My Uncle Morris was a decorated war veteran from Korea and Vietnam. He was Special Forces Green Beret. When he was buried in, I think it was 2009 when he passed away, he got a, honored burial with a color guard from the U.S. Army. And of course, he was a Master Mason, so he got a Masonic burial as well. But my Uncle James, who adopted Robert, he was a general contractor, builder on the side, but he worked for the county water sewage department, and he worked the prisoners out at the county farm on the work details, when they were serving their sentences. And so he had like arresting powers and could stop people and write them tickets out of the water department truck because he had that authority working the prisoners. And of course, he got Robert a job with the Cobb County Police Department there in 1971, if I remember correctly. And Robert worked for the department until 1979, when he left and went to work for IBM to work his way up the corporate ladder there, starting in security. But Robert was part of this pedo terrorist network. He recruited my brother into it through Roger Nance. So they got into me through my family, and Beth Ramsey found out all about it. And there was I think it was a 9-year-old girl, Hispanic girl they had held over there in the loft of one of those barns. When she first started coming looking for me, my guess would be right around, it took her 3 months to get in touch with me, and that was October. So right around June or July, they had held this 9-year-old Hispanic girl over there at Bentley Lake Farms. And but they went to my old place of employment, which was the old Waffle House Unit 479 right there off of Roswell Road in Marietta, the 120 loop, which is actually the building is owned by Ed Bentley.
Wow.
Pike Nursery, all that's the buildings and stuff is owned by him and leased to them, and of course the convenience store there. And they own the property on both sides of the 120 loop, own up to some of the businesses there on, or at least the buildings there at, I'm trying to think of the name of that road, 120 loop that turns into Gresham Road and runs out and turns into Merritt Road.
I'm showing them again, Bentley Lake Road, where we're going down to the farms right here, and they now have the road closed off. It says Bentley Lake Road right here. It says dead end, but this is where a lot of the trafficking and the murders of children and such with the Barnes sex trafficking and all was down there where he had like 4 different barns that I know of.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing. You can look it up and you can see how many, like with Alice Summer, she'll go ahead and discuss and say about the barns just keep burning. Yeah. And they'll go ahead and get rid of one, and the next day it'll be built back up or something. And a lot of people would not even know that they tore it down, I guess, to try to get rid of some evidence.
Well, this one to keep people out of there. There has been so many barn fires that they even credited the barns, the concrete barns that they had to destroy by the court, settlement agreement between my dad and George Bentley.
Uh-huh.
They're still accrediting those to arsonists.
And
so all these barn fires they accredit to arsonists, local people in the area outside of the Bentley family. And after so long, it becomes quite obvious who's going to go over and catch all these barns on fire of the DOD contractor who makes the M16 Bushmasters and the silencers for the guns for the U.S. military.
yeah,
I mean, that would be crazy.
Yeah, that's
he could shoot you and nobody would know it.
Yeah, Ed Bentley did that, and he also was friends with Epstein. Okay.
Yeah, said they were partners in international arms and weapons trade. They were really close friends with John Ramsey. I met Jeff Epstein in 1980, the summer of 1983. And of course, I met John Ramsey three evenings before my 18th birthday in 1983. And of course, I was the prey of their human hunting party that night and survived. There's still a lot to talk about it. I've actually had to survive another one in 2001 when my dad was dying in the ICU unit in Piedmont Hospital in Atlanta. They tried to kill me while he was dying in the ICU.
And see, Randall Bentley is a part of the Bentleys. He's related to Ed Bentley. And they got a big law firm over there in Marietta, in Cobb County. It's a whole slew of them.
He's also the solicitor for the municipal courts of City of Kennesaw, City of Ackworth, has been since 1988. And, of course, his dad, Fred Bentley Sr., was a former state senator from Cobb County. He's the one who started Bentley and Bentley Law Group. And Alice Summer, she's the daughter of Jim Stubbs.
Yeah, that's the one that they tried to got her to do some stupid stuff with you, back when you were younger, right?
Well, yeah, that's like I tell people. They used a 5-year-old attorney tried to turn me into a porn star where they could set up and frame my daddy for it. And they failed to do that. So, of course, Jim Stubbs, her daddy, was the only one that was arrested and charged. They didn't charge George Bentley nor Ed Bentley nor Frank Sheldon with a grooming or anything like that. Jim Stubbs was the only one that they arrested, and that is Alice Stubbs right there, Jim Stubbs' daughter, who's 5 to 6 years old, who they, abused me with through her. They tried to make it, my brother and them tried to make it out. They used all three of the children, the two sons and her, to exploit me or abuse me, but no, it was just her.
Right.
And here she is, an attorney for the city of Marietta.
It's pretty scary when they got all these Bentley and Bentleys, and then what you was getting at, that going back to the barn thing, when there was, Beth had ended up saying she thought that there was some boys in there also, or how did y'all realize there was somebody in that barn that night?
Well, actually, I had purchased an automobile from a friend of mine. While I was working out in Athens, Georgia, selling Kirby vacuum cleaners with my Uncle Morris Beach. And I had a little problem with a oil leak at the back of the head, so I had to take it back to my buddy Gene to fix. So he had loaned me his 1971 Cutlass convertible. Well, he had my car in for repair, and I just so happened decided to go by the Waffle House because it had been months since I had been by there, pop in on some of the people I worked with. And that's how I found out there was a pretty young lady coming in there asking about me numerous times. And it turned out to be Beth Ramsey. And at that time, they had two teenage black boys that they were holding captive over there in the loft on the wooden barn that you could see there from the 120 loop, just past the on-ramp from Roswell Road. And heading out to what we call Whitewater theme park today. One teenager was from east of Orlando. Another one was from just south of Birmingham. I believe it was the 15-year-old was from Florida, and the 13-year-old was the one from Alabama.
And they were into the foster care system. Am I right or wrong?
Yes, ma'am. They had both taken from their parents, put into the foster care system. One of the boys, remember correctly, was, parents was in prison. So he wound up in foster care. I forgot the story of the other boy, why he wound up in foster care, but we didn't have a whole lot of time to talk about things, trying to convince them to leave that loft that night that I tried to get them, which I did get them to leave.
But hold on a minute. You got to back up for a minute. The reason why we got John Andrew right here listed is because, Charles, you told Beth Ramsey not to tell anybody. Don't even tell John Andrew. And she decided to go ahead and trust her brother and told him, right?
Well, we all three told her. Her friend Paula, her fiance Matt. We discouraged her from telling anyone in her family, including Melinda and especially John Andrew. And she went ahead and she told John Andrew anyway. So it was really a suicide mission from that point, going over there to rescue those two teenage boys, because Judge McLaughlin, Ed Bentley and my cousin Robert V were there, and they actually did try to shoot and kill all three of us as we crossed the road, but I stopped dead in my tracks when I heard the two teenage boys bodies hit the pavement, I just stopped dead in my tracks, and I heard what sounded like a bumblebee flying, in front of my forehead.
Wow.
So they did try to shoot me, and I hauled tail across further in behind the dumpster there behind the Waffle House. But the moment I saw Judge McLaughlin's 70 Buick Centurion parked where it was, I tried to holler at the teenagers to change course and run over toward where I was at, because when I saw his vehicle, I knew we'd been had, and they didn't listen. They went ahead and ran across the road, so I went ahead and tried to run myself to divert fire from them, but they hit the pavement, and I stopped dead in my tracks, and I looked, and that's when I heard the bullet fly past my head. And come to find out was my cousin Robert, who did fire at my head, but I stopped my tracks.
And this is Judge McLaughlin right here, y'all. And he's got an earlier picture of what homicide was that. We'll go back to this in a few minutes. But there's a picture of a younger version of him when you told the story about this. But we're not going to tell the full story right now. But you seen our younger version, and he was on a wanted list for murder.
I-70 serial killer. I call it the I-70 assassin because those were executions of potential witnesses. Now, not all the victims were witnesses. It's like the two ladies that was killed in that one business. One was a witness. The other one just so happened to be her co-worker.
So this guy, he is crooked as all get out. He's a part of all that.
Well, I had initially become a witness against him for a homicide that he carried out for Sheriff Bill Hudson and the Bentleys when I was in the 8th grade at Mabry Middle back in 1980.
And so, when we go back around that, so we do have some earlier recordings on the other stuff, but I just want to touch base that he's got further connections and proof behind other things. And there is you could get the court documentation of that where that wreck that he went when he wrecked into that brick mailbox years ago, right?
Yeah. He chased 1980. He was chasing a 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle green with a vinyl top down Ebenezer Road, and it veered off the curve into the brick mailbox of, Betty Elrod, the sister of Bill Hudson, who was sheriff of Cobb County. And what it was that victim, he was going to the authorities to report the activities over there on the Bentley Lake Farm is the reason why Mike McLaughlin chased him down and to the brick mailbox of Betty Elrod and snatched him up and put him in his car and took him out and killed him elsewhere. And Cobb County just totally refuses, still till this day, to charge him with that homicide because he carried it out for Cobb County is the way we see it.
Right. And the thing about that is whenever we go back to that barn, and so when y'all got through and y'all huddled back up over there together, right? And John Ramsey ended up confronting Beth and all of y'all, right?
That is correct. This after they killed the two teenage boys, McLaughlin stepped up there and told us not to go anywhere, that Beth's dad was going to be there shortly. And of course, he come arriving shortly thereafter with Paula, Beth's friend. She was driving her little blue Geo. And John Andrew came over there and advised her that it was off. So she followed John from the East Lake Shopping Center, which, was walking distance of that Waffle House. Beth and Matt, they was going to take one teenager and take him to a judge's advocate general. I was to take the other one. We were to run over to the East Lake Shopping Center where she could, where Paula could take him, and us also go to a judge's advocate general, since we couldn't take them to the police.
Right,
because the police was involved.
Yeah.
And that was the plan. So John Andrew, that picture you got of him there, he kind of looks like his daddy when I first met him in 1983. You know, just a few nights before my 18th birthday.
Right. Yeah, that's the night when your brother said that he's going to introduce you to the Atlanta child murderer. And
yes, ma'am. And I didn't want to meet anybody involved in the Atlanta child murders, but I knew they were going to want to meet me, since I went down there June 19th, 82, the way I did that night, and demanded safe return of my brother.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no desire to meet any of these people. And that's when I found out that evening that the Bentleys were involved. It all made sense whenever McLaughlin showed up that evening with Franklin Delano Floyd, who was introduced to me as, you know, Bill Ramsey, of course.
Yeah.
You know, like Jeff Epstein was introduced me as Maurice, you know, earlier that year. To my brother Fred and Roger Nance. All these people that we're talking about, they're all serial killers, every one of them. And
this is Franklin Delano Floyd, aka Bill Ramsey.
Yes. And
this is him as well, right here.
Mm-hmm. He later also became a member of the Midwestern Bank Bandits. Him and Richard Evanitz.
Yes.
Roger Nance and my brother Fred Rogers, they were involved with the bank robberies and the bombing of the Alfred P. Murray Federal Building. David Guthrie, Michael Brescia, Kevin Langan, Eric Rudolph was a member of the Midwestern Bank Bandits. Joey Davis, anonymous caller, the Centennial Park Attack, he was a member as well of the Midwestern Bank Bandits, Aryan Republican Army. And as you can see there, if you flip back to that picture there of Miss Carter, it's a no-brainer that the last person she was seen meeting with was, in fact, Franklin Delano Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, according to them, Judge McLaughlin assaulted and murdered her in front of her 3 and 4 year old daughters, who are still alive, and are able to identify the perpetrators of their mother's murder. Should be able to identify. You know, it's kind of hard to say what an adult can remember since their childhood. But now you showed a picture of my cousin Wayne. I don't reckon he was ever a serial killer.
No, we just got different people in here that's got affiliations with him as well, you know, so
Yeah.
he wasn't really a serial. And see, even Matt Darrington, he wasn't a serial killer, and Beth Ramsey was not a serial killer. You know, she was one of the good ones that's trying to help out. She tried to rescue John Monet, really, too. Well,
Beth had already learned about their plot to bombed the Alfred P. Murray Federal Building. She already knew about their plans to launch a string of 35 terrorist attacks, which gave me an advantage. Once I got up to Murphy, North Carolina in July of 96, it kind of really gave me an advantage already having this knowledge, because what I found out was her dad, John, owned a house on Lake Chattooga. They're close to Ray Duncan. And the Ramseys loaned out their home to the Whites, and I forgot the name of that gynecologist that was John Benet's doctor. They used their house while the Ramseys stayed in Big Ray Duncan's house with Jeff Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell.
Right.
And of course, Ghislaine, she chaperoned all the girls during their water skiing lessons for Eric Rudolph, because he worked for Zell Miller. And he also did some work for Ray Duncan and Duncan Oil, remodeling of the Durango Mountain Purgatory Ski Resort there in Boulder. He also remodeled former U.S. President Jimmy Carter and Rosalynn Carter's home in Plains, Georgia, after he got out of the Army in 1994. And it was all pretty much through his buddies there at Murphy Building Supply that he was able to meet these people and get in with them and become what we call a child rape and murder and domestic terrorist. So,
Here's what, Charles, here's where I found this, and where the Nancy Schaefer, conservative activist, where she was killed right here.
mhm.
And they try to say murder-suicide, but I don't think he killed himself, right?
No, that was an execution. I'm not going to say who I'm in communication with right now, who is associates of Nancy Schaefer's.
Right. Yeah, we don't need to know
But,
that, but for their own safety.
Yeah, but there was an associate, I'm going to say at least one associate, that was in the basement of the Schaefer's home when they were murdered. And so there was no murder-suicide of Roger and Nancy Schaefer.
I thought
It was executions, and we have a pretty good idea who those executions were carried through by.
they called her husband Bruce.
Was it Bruce? I thought it was Roger, but okay. Yeah, Bruce.
And then they even
My
have
correction, my bad on that. But
and you can look at y'all.
Bruce did not execute his wife and turn around and kill himself. That was not in their nature. This couple, their whole life's devotion, once Rick brought to her attention what was going over there in Demorest, after we got him reinstated as a deputy sheriff, while Louis Free talked to the two prosecutors over there in the Rudolph case, we got to discussing about the Child Protective Services scandal that I had learned from, of course, Beth Ramsey, and of course from Doug McRae up there in the Radio Shack in Murphy, North Carolina. Because Doug stated that was their best source of children was from the foster care system of Child Protective Services. And those two black teenage boys, well, they came out of foster care and were going to be sacrificed, just like the other victims of the Atlanta child murders were sacrificed. It's just after the arrest of Wayne Williams in 1981 that they started bringing in their victims from out of town and out of state instead of snatching them up off the streets in Atlanta. But all the victims of the Atlanta child murders, except for maybe one or two of them, were all held over there on Bentley Lake Farm. I've heard of another place they were held but I know for a fact that the ones that they killed in 1982 and the other two they killed in 1991 were out of town and out of state. So they were not even, to my understanding, weren't even from Georgia.
What?
And of course, the ones that Beth, Pat, and Paul and I tried to rescue, one was from Birmingham, and another one from there east of Orlando.
Yeah, and then for John Ramsey to go and question you and say, like, I can understand why Charles would do that, and but he really got mad more at Paula and at Beth and Matt Darrington. But the fact is that he threatened to kill all of y'all. And
That's
even
correct.
threatened to kill JonBenet on the anniversary of when he said he had killed Jill Robinson with the Oakland child murders.
Mm-hmm.
And look up Jill Robinson on the Oakland child murders, and her obituary does say December the 26th. So, yeah, that would tie into around when JonBenet was killed. See?
Mm-hmm. Well, JonBenet was murdered exactly 20 years from the date that John Ramsey, I've heard him say it twice, the evening that I met him, he was sitting over there boasting and bragging about the children he had murdered up north. They didn't talk about the Atlanta child murders around me, but the other children he had murdered, which included Jill Robinson. And of course, when he was talking about her case and how he shot her in the face with a shotgun, I got to sit there and watch the two technicians from Layton Graphics and my brother Fred and Roger sit there and laugh like that stuff was funny.
Did y'all hear that they laughed? They thought it was funny, the fact that John Ramsey said he shot Jill Robinson in the face.
Yeah, because mostly John's technique of murders of children is strangulation, removing their shoes. That is your number one footprint of John Ramsey.
Well, I thought it was kind of weird though, that one picture where on his link at Facebook on one of the JonBenet Ramsey groups, and where the Ramsey family had posted a picture of the ditch where one of these other girls got killed in Texas. Remember that? And they said a suspect, and as far as we know, there ain't really supposed to be any pictures of a suspect. And you said that does kind of look like how John Ramsey would dress when he's over there in Texas with a cowboy hat,
Well, yeah, he's what we call a chameleon. Changes appearance. When John Ramsey, the reason why I didn't recognize him from that night down there at the Chattahoochee, he had shaved off his beard and mustache. So when I met him in November of 1983, he was clean shaven. He looked kind of like that doggone sissified son of his there, John Andrew. Clean cut, clean shaven. But down at the Chattahoochee River, to my understanding, he had a full beard and mustache. It's like Doug McRae when you look at the composite sketches of the Oakland County child murders there at the Timothy King case, and you look at the composite sketch there of the, homicide of 11-year-old Levi Frady of Cumming, Georgia. They're the composite sketch of the same guy. Okay.
Right. So let me show y'all the Doug McRae, the sketch that I do have of Doug McRae. Okay.
But Doug, he'd wear a mustache, clean shaven and well kept and all of that over at the Radio Shack. But just a week or two before the murder of Levi Frady, shaved off his mustache and grew this, kind of stubby beard there, where he could put on an old ball cap and some scrubby old clothes and, look like a bum during the abduction and homicide of 11-year-old Levi Frady. As you see there, that's his composite sketch from the Timothy King case. If you could pull up the one from the Levi Frady homicide, you could almost say, well, that's the age of progressing.
Yeah, I don't think I got the composite sketch of the one with Levi Frady, though.
Yeah, but anybody can Google search it on Google or any other search as far as Levi Frady. In the two composite sketches, there's going to be Doug McRae and, of course, Jim Vickers, of the branch manager of Electrolux in Gainesville, Georgia, who had nothing to do with the abduction of Levi, nor his murder or anything. Anything, was a witness to his abduction. That's why I have the names of all the people who was involved in his abduction and a lot of the names who was involved in his homicide. According to Albert Samples and Marilyn Parkman, there was right around 32 to 34 people, some of them government officials and some very powerful people. Well, we know exactly who they're talking about when they don't want to name them.
Happy Easter. So let me go look over there and I'll show y'all the composite sketch of what he just was talking about. This over here to the right over here. Do you see the picture now?
Yeah, the clean-shaven guy on the right, he was a witness. He passed away, I think, 2 years ago. And he later got into the tire business. Grew a mustache and just lived out his life. His name was Jim Vickers. He was the branch manager of Electrolux. And the composite sketch on the left, well, that's Doug McRae.
That's what I thought. I'm sorry, I really get sick, and I think you understand why it makes me sick looking at his picture.
Well, I can imagine. I think there's a lot of ladies, if they ever saw Doug McRae, you'd have to give him a barf bag. Because it's just still telling how many victims that have survived their network.
Yeah. For y'all that don't know, it does put me in danger to say him, but I tell you, he was my handler.
Yeah. So what I want to do now is pretty much cover it here for Rick White, Richard Jewell, and how Rick came into the picture. I don't recall what year that he started his career with the Habersham County Sheriff's Department. But Rick had a tendency to, charge people with minor offenses. And was, there for a while, he was pretty much, took it to the extreme of enforcing the law, that he wound up getting some complaints against him out of the local people. And the sheriff's department wound up letting him go on the account of it. And so when the Olympics came to Atlanta, they needed volunteers to work the security. And so Rick, he volunteered to go work with security at the park during the Olympics. He wasn't working the night of the Kenny Rogers performance, but he was working the night on my daughter's birthday when they actually did decide to postpone the attack to the 27th. Now, I called in. I got word that the attack was going to be on that night, so I did call in. I identified myself around 3:40 p.m. from College Park and notified the authorities that the attack was on for that night. And of course, Joey Davis, the anonymous caller to the Centennial Park attack, is a suspect in the homicide of John Monet. He's the one who called. They told him that there was a bomb in the park and that they had 30 minutes. He did that from a payphone at the Shell gas station there in Murphy, North Carolina. Well, Rick, he needed to be out on the look for explosives, and he spotted the backpack of explosives after cousins Mike and Bobby Cook left them where they were. So he approached it and got everybody cleared away and started clearing the area, securing the area. So the bomb expert could identify it as an explosive. So he wound up saving a lot of lives that night, being as responsive as he was and as responsible as he was in public safety. He managed to get a lot of people, to safer positions where there was only really one casualty out of the explosion. Of course, one gentleman, had a heart attack when he was running over to assist some of the people who got injured, and that's how he passed away. But this one boy lost his mother and lost, half of one of his arms in that attack. But, we have a lot to be thankful for, that those were really the only two casualties. At that attack, it could have been a whole lot worse. It would have been a whole lot worse if they hadn't postponed the attack from the 25th to my daughter's birthday, because Kenny Rogers was performing at the park the night of the 25th. And they would have killed Kenny Rogers during his performance if they had went through the attack on the 25th. So, after being chased around Lower Alabama over a dozen times, and they totaled out 4 of their automobiles down there. Judge McLaughlin totaled out that 1970 Buick Centurion that he was so famous for chasing people down and killing them in, that he totaled it down there in Evergreen, Alabama, chasing me, one early afternoon. And that's how he totaled out his automobile. There was 1974 Pontiac Le Mans that was totaled. There was 2 Z28s that were totaled. Those were in Brantley, Alabama, that chased against my Z28. And there was, a bad collision there. There was a mother and 3 children wound up seriously injured in that collision. So July 15th, 1996, I got a call at my office in Electrolux at Pensacola from FBI wanting a meeting. So met with them over in Pace, Florida. They're just where 9 Mile Road crosses over into Santa Rosa County, into this dirt road to the left, and that's where I met with them at. Was there in the field. And that's how I pretty much got dragged into this case for the state of North Carolina. Was my meeting with them on the 15th of July. So it was determined I had no choice but to go to Murphy at that time. I was already going through a nasty divorce. There was so much turmoil in my marriage over this that my wife, she wound up filing for divorce. And so I really had no choice but to either return to Marietta or go live at my dad's place up in Whittier, North Carolina. And I just decided to transfer my part-time sales job with Electrolux from Pensacola to Murphy, North Carolina. So started my first day on the 23rd of July. And of course, at the last minute, they decided to postpone the attack from the 25th to my daughter's birthday on the 27th in the first step toward trying to set me up and frame me for the attack. And that's how I got commissioned by Governor James Baxter Hunt Jr. July the 30th, 1996 was through the recommendation of Louis Freeh of the FBI. So during my first meeting on the 30th, I was headed out toward Copper Basin whenever this gray Cutlass Supreme, 3 guys wanted me to pull over. I had a feeling it was FBI, and sure enough it was. So I had to ride around and talk with them. And of course I didn't know who had set the explosives, who built the explosives, or anything at that time. So I really had no information that I could share with them if I wanted to. But my agreement with the agents in Pensacola, Nettles, and I'm trying to remember the other fellow's name, Watson, that if I did take this case on, I would not be able to provide any information to the FBI whatsoever because it was too risky. And I would have to go up there and handle this kind of blind in a civilian type of manner in order to be able to pull it off without getting killed.
And then again, it was probably kind of scared to even trust the FBI, knowing that John Ramsey and some of these others work for the government as well.
Well, you know, I really wasn't that keen on any of the, you know, corruption of the FBI. I really wasn't, I wasn't really fond of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, but by the time it was all over with, Agent Ron Vincent of the Cleveland field office of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, we wound up, buddies. He actually helped me stop the truck bombing of the FBI field office down in Mobile, Alabama, the morning of 29th of January, 98, and was instrumental with a few other people, including Hunter Biden, Jim Biden, and some others in getting that hydrogen bomb surrendered to the ATF on the night before the attack on the New Women's Healthcare Clinic and attempted truck bombing of the FBI.
Okay, I know you.
So
I wanted to also make sure the people also know about how. So did Rick Jewell also work with Nancy Schaefer or what?
Well, what happened with Richard? Okay, like I said, we didn't have, we couldn't afford for the media to focus on Murphy, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
So when I met with those agents on the 30th of July and we came across the plan, I asked them about Rick's background. And they told me why he got let go from the sheriff's department and how he was trying to gain favor to get reinstated back to his position is why he volunteered his services as security at the park during the Olympics. He was also an expert marksman. And so that's what we used to make it look like to the media that he was some extremist, being a marksman and stuff like that. And he did not know that he was he was actually secretly behind the scenes working with the state of North Carolina and the FBI in counterterrorism. He didn't even know it. He didn't even realize it. All he knew, he was all of a sudden the suspect. You know, the media was out there putting on this big show. He couldn't understand why. You know, he helped find the explosives. You know, and you have to feel sorry for the guy because, you know, I'd have been flipping out myself if I had been in his shoes. But he held it together. He never lost it. He never went off on anybody. He held his composure. So finally into, I'm thinking right in just before or after the attempted attacks on Six Flags and Cumberland Mall. Well, actually, right around the June 19th, 1997, attempted truck bombing of the Home Depot corporate headquarters, that he was cleared as a suspect to the media. He never was a suspect, by the way. We knew he had nothing to do with the attack.
Right.
But as far as to the media had to be told, well, he's been cleared as a suspect. We're looking into somebody else now. Looks like my house and leads, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Well, Ron Benson, he didn't know anything. He was the chief investigator for the state of Georgia over the Centennial Park attack. So he got to witness the interrogations of Rick, which he found very, very upsetting. And I had to explain that to him during our last conversation there the night of the 29th of January at his house in Suttons, Georgia. And because he lived less than a mile from my brother Fred.
Oh, no.
And he was on their target list. They had intentions of killing every member of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, FBI, U.S. Marshals, judges, prosecutors, anybody that had to do with the government, they were on their target list.
Well, just as long as they did not go ahead and if they were not in their club group, so to speak, like the gridiron type of thing, right?
Well, gridiron, Mossad, whatever you want to call it, it's all the same thing.
Yeah. And we don't talk that much about Monograph, but another time we're gonna have to come back in there and talk about Del Monograph and whatever his names really are.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, Rick wound up being a fall guy, wound up helping me stop 30. I tell people 30 out of 35. This is really 31 out of 36 attacks. Just for taking the heat off of Murphy and looking like the patsy to the media. That was very instrumental. That gave me the time that I needed to get in touch with some of my old friends up in the Smoky Mountains. And get them informed about what was going on, where I could get their support and, and get in touch with the right people to help protect me up there. Because there's a point everybody up there wanted me dead.
And it's kind of funny how that recently I showed you a picture of a guy that tried to get with me back after my divorce, and I showed you that picture, and then there's connections there as well. I'm like, oh, gee, they've tried to get me to go to North Carolina way years ago, And I'm like, that he's part of that too. I'm like, man, they still try to go after me in some ways,
Well, that looks like Daniel Rudolph in the picture with him, so there you go.
Yeah, plus that other person was one that Lisa looked like rented the house to, right?
That's correct.
So it looks like that was going to be a dead sit up. People, if y'all get a guy common sense, if a guy tries to say, okay, I'd be interested in meeting you, just I won't be able to drive down there ever meet you, but please get a U-Haul. And well, I'm not going to tell you exactly where to go, but you'll know where you got to stop when you get to where you're going. And I'm like, I don't think so, Tim.
Well, it's like those two guys walked into Chico Deals that day. This was around, I guess, around 2 or 3 weeks after I knocked out that one guy. I think his name was Mark Payne over there at Papado's on Windy Hill Road when I had my confrontation with Jeff Carrier and Steve Gold. It was the day that I met with an agent there in Marietta, and they refused to arrest John Ramsey and that Bentley, but they already had cases on Jeff Epstein down in Florida and New York that they could hit him with charges with it. I really wanted Ghislaine more than I wanted any of them, because I've interviewed 3 of those girls up there from North Carolina who had been sexually abused by Eric Rudolph while being chaperoned by Ghislaine during their water skiing lessons. And the one girl, she was 12 years old when she was also sexually assaulted by Jeff Epstein during her water skiing lessons because of Ghislaine. Now, as Ghislaine, she spent the entire summer, to my understanding, over there in Hiawassee, Georgia, Young Harris. A lot of people in the restaurants there in Hiawassee remember Rudolph and Ghislaine going in there and eating dinners with a Ramsey's quite a bit, that they thought that Ghislaine was one of Rudolph's girlfriends. They were seen around each other so much. And of course, Jeffrey, whenever he was in town, he was hanging out over there with, Joe Biden and David Ralston and
he was HB's smoke cracking buddy, right?
Well, yeah, Hunter was Bo Twist and buddy with Rudolph and the Cooks and all that bunch from over there in Murphy. After I had stopped the June 3rd, 1997 bomb attack on the Little League baseball game there in Ball Ground, Georgia, I had to personally show up and stop it. That was like the 19th terrorist attack that I had stopped that year.
Yeah, and then you said something about them people said, wonder what those guys is doing. They're getting ready to detonate the bomb. Do what?
Well, I was told I better not show up, and I walked past Jeff Cook and Joey Davis sitting over there telling me I wasn't supposed to be there, and I just ignored them. I went over there and started watching the ball game. Started to walk around and see who else I could see. Well, here come Rudolph walking out past the first plate out there, and walked up, was kneeling down on the ground. Davis and Cook screaming at me from behind. I wasn't supposed to show up. Well, a couple of the spectators looked at me and they were like, man, what's their problem with you being here? I said, because they're about to set off a bomb here. A bomb? I said, yeah, that one over there past first base is kneeled down on the ground. He must be over there attaching the detonator right there as we speak. So all of a sudden, we're all screaming bomb. So it ends the baseball game. They had to come back and finish the final inning at another time. Everybody winds up leaving in a panic. And that's how we stopped the bomb attack on the Little League baseball game there in Ball Ground, Georgia. And mentioning Ball Ground, Alice Summerer and the Bentleys, they have a church over there that they own and operate over there in Ball Ground, Georgia. That they're affiliated to.
Here's Joey Davis right here.
Actually, believe it or not, good buddies with his dad. His dad's pretty good people. He's just, as Wheeler would say, we just don't know how to describe it. But anyway, so Rick, of course, everybody goes to the courthouse in Birmingham.
Yeah, it's in Jefferson County.
Say that Rudolph, he decided to enter his plea deal out there. And Louis Freeh, director of the FBI, he decided that he would let Eric's mother, Pat Murphy, have one final personal contact visit with her son. Because most mothers of their sons who are getting sent to prison like to have one last physical contact visit with their sons that they can't get once they get to prison.
He's coming close to getting killed by her, boy.
Well, he was thinking that, he wasn't going to hear much except the grieving mother back there hugging and kissing her son goodbye, and thanking him for doing what he thought was God's will and all of that, He did not expect to hear that lady back there screaming out of the top of her lungs, calling me every name and you could imagine, from pedophile to a child murderer to a rapist, terrorist, serial killer. And Louis didn't even know I was there. He was standing around the corner. Rick and I, we were standing outside the door of the holding cell area there by the courtroom. And even Rick couldn't understand when we heard her start yelling. Rick was like, that's Miss Murphy cussing at Eric. I said, yeah, it is. You hear that word, pedophile, right? Louis peeps around the corner and he sees Rick and I standing over there talking. He's like, Charles Rogers, I didn't know you were here. And I was like, yeah, Mr. Freeh, I just got here. I had just walked in the courtroom as they had just walked him out in front of the judge. And of course, everybody was pouring out, coming down the escalator, trying to get out of there. I had one guy mouth off to me on my way up the escalator. But after I exited the building that day, he turned around and apologized because he had heard what all Eric Rudolph was.
Yeah, you had to tell his mom exactly the words she asked you.
Yeah, and he still turned around and lied to her, lied to his sister, and then turned around and admitted it to some mutual friends of ours. That he did ask me that question, and that's what almost got him killed by his own mother. So Louis, he looked around the corner and he goes, after he sees it's me, and he goes, did I hear right? Did she just call him a pedophile, child murderer? I was like, yeah, Mr. Freeh, you heard correct. He goes, well, just a minute. I'm still in a meeting over here with the prosecutors. I want you to come over here and kind of fill me in on that. Well, when I approached Rick, he was talking with that boy that lost his arm in the Taco Centennial Park, lost his mother and lost half his arm, like kid. So when they got through talking, I sat there and introduced myself to Rick, and he shook my hand. I said, well, Mr. Jewell, I just want to apologize about, making you go through what you did. He goes, it's okay if I call you Charles, don't you? I was like, yeah, it's okay. It's okay if I call you Richard. Well, just call me Rick. That's what my friends call me. I said, okay, Rick. I really do want to apologize about it. He goes, Charles, you don't have to worry about that. Mr. Wood and Mr. Free explained to me why you put me through what you did, and if I had to go through it again to help you stop over 32 attacks, I would do it again. You know, that's a patriot right there.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
That, you know, that is him as a totally dedicated peace officer. And I was like, well, what you gonna do with that money now? You got $3.5 million coming. He goes, I don't know. I don't really want it. You know, that when I was riding with those federal agents, they're around Copper Basin and Mineral Bluff and back up to Ranger there, tri-state area, talking about him. I asked him how much he would make, stop, from saving the lives that he did that night. And they said the most he could make would probably been $300,000.
Right.
Off of selling books and interviews with reporters and stuff like that. But that would have been the most he could have made being a hero in that attack. And I'm like, well, how much could he get if y'all made him look like the guilty party? They was like, well, that could be up around, at least $3.5 million. Why? Well, you're gonna make the fall guy. Do what? I said, yeah, you want me to stop that truck bombing of your field office down there in Mobile, Alabama, don't you? Well, which is more important to you, $3.5 million or 350 federal agents? Well, on that note, we think we'd much rather pay up to $3.5 million. I said, well, there you go. You're going to make him a fall guy with the media. Well, you want us to arrest him? I said, no, I don't want you to arrest him. You just put the word out that he's a suspect to the media. Let the media go out there and make a spectacle out of him. Whatever you do, don't arrest the guy. Just wait till it gets down to the nitty gritty to where you either have to charge him or let him go. Because I think it's a whole lot feasible for you guys to pay $3.5 million than lose 350 federal agents, because that's how many worked in that field office there in Mobile, Alabama. So that's why Rick was more than happy to go through that again if he could help stop another 30 plus attacks.
Okay, could you go ahead?
So we got to talking.
Make sure you talk about Nancy Shaver too, how that connects to all that.
That's what I'm getting to. So we got to talking, and I told him, I asked him, I said, Rick, working in years in law enforcement, have you ever seen any strange activities and defects and children winding up being prostituted and murdered or thing? He goes, I've seen some cases like that up there in Habersham County where I worked. So I told him what Doug McRae told me over there at Radio Shack. So we sat there and we made this plan because he knew this state senator that he might could get on board with us into doing an investigation into Child Protective Services, and that was Nancy Shaver.
And I want to tell people that, yeah, this is a holiday today, but, with tracking a lot of these kids, they don't have no holiday. They're right here trapping daily, okay, several times a day. So it don't matter whether it's a holiday, whether it's not a holiday. We still need to speak for these kids.
Well, what Rick found out, she was already working on trying to build up a case against Child Protective Services. So when he went over and sat down and talked to her, she was thrilled. She's got a deputy, hero in Centennial Park, ready to work with her in getting this stuff exposed.
All right, that fit right in.
Yes, it did. She had it, and she was ready to go to ball. She was ready to go out here and expose this thing. So she talked to some of her colleagues, and they told her, said, Nancy, you better back off. And she goes, back off. They're like, you will ruin your political career if you don't back off. Well, when they told her that made her more determined not to back off, but to fight even harder. So, of course, they went out there and tried to make her look like a nutcase. That's their number one tactic, is to make people look like they're, crazy. And I was just reading one of these comments here. And she wound up losing the election before she was killed. Now, we had a meeting that we had scheduled there in 2006. I had to drive all the way up to Demorest and meet with Rick at Piedmont College because he was working campus security that day. And we were out there having a meeting, and I can't think of the name of the guy from the Board of Regents. Some of those guys came over there and started directing threats at us, and interrupted our meeting, so we didn't get to talk then. But in less than 10 days, Rick was dead from a heart attack.
Wow. Do you think it had anything to do? I know a lot of people say conspiracy theory, their third conspiracy theory, but they did have a heart attack type of.
Yes, they got what they call a heart attack gun. It shoots it's a reddish icicle type projectile. I could probably pull up my long leather duster and put a light on the other side of it. You can see the pinholes in my leather duster.
Oh, so they kept trying to do that to you, huh?
I believe so. I can't think of any other way there'd be needle holes in my leather duster. Because I've always been famous. I've always enjoyed wearing leather jackets. And
you are still being harassed by these people, by, the court things that you're having to take care of still today because of, like that Randall Whitley guy, right? Mm-hmm. They're still trying to quiet you. They're trying to silence you still today because as much as
they would love to. But the problem with that is the bunch up there in Murphy, they lost a death wager there in September of 1999. They bet their lives against mine that they could prove that the FBI sent me up there. And it was impossible for the FBI to send me to that baseball game in 1974 between my elementary school there at Morganton or our Little League baseball team against Murphy, which of course Murphy won. But the FBI did not send me over there to that baseball game to accuse 9-year-old Mike Cook going to blow up the federal building out in Oklahoma City in the Olympics in the future. And that's what the FBI found out when during our meeting down there in Pace, Florida, that I had accused Mike Cook of going to do that. And of course, they didn't know who my brother Fred was at the time. They didn't know much about Roger Nance. Their names didn't come up. But they made an exception that morning to talk with the director, who was Louis Freak, to get approval to disclose to me the names of the people that was on their suspects list from up there at Murphy. And of course, Sam Duncan and Sam Duncan Jr.'s, their names came up. Doug McRae, his brother Merle McRae, and Merle's boys, Benji and Matt McRae came up. Of course, Francis Cook and his brothers, John and Robert, their names and their sons, Mike, Jeff, Fred, Chad, Bobby, and John Jr., their names came up,
Was Joe Pugh into anything else like this too, or not?
What's that?
What kind of stuff was Joe Pugh all involved in?
Joe is a former investigator for the Cobb County District Attorney's Office. He worked with people like Grady Moore, former Assistant District Attorney of Cobb County, Mike McLaughlin. All these guys were tied in with Bill Hudson, Buddy Darden, John Ramsey, of course, the Bentleys, in child trafficking, the Atlanta child murders. And that's the thing. Most of these victims that to my understanding from what I gathered out of Beth Ramsey, the 9-year-old Hispanic girl, she was taken from foster care.
Oh boy.
So this is how I originally started stumbling across the child trafficking scandals, child protective services. We call it Department of Family and Children's Services here in Georgia.
For anybody that wants to look up more on my folders, I got specifically a bunch of Blackstone lawyer Charles Rogers. It's in a folder by itself, and he divulges a lot of information. So y'all can go and listen to them sometime too. He's got a world of information.
But really, these are your four pioneers of the Child Protective Services investigation, including me, and that is Beth Ramsey, Matt Darrington, of course, her friend Paula, Rick, Jewel. We also got his name changed back to Rick White. One got him reinstated at the Habersham County Sheriff's Department, so he no longer went by Richard Jewell. He went by his birth name, Rick White. And that is the name he's deceased under. That's why people can't find his grave. And everybody that knows the Nancy Schaefer story knows that her husband did not kill her, turn around and turn a gun on himself.
Right.
So, and there's been some people associated with her I've been in communication with here lately that's very familiar in our work. They're very familiar in my work. They knew that I founded the Coalition for Children in 2005 and got the death penalty passed for child rape in Georgia Code as civilian. I could do that in my native state as a civilian. I can't do that in North Carolina as an appointed government official. So we're hoping that this year, 2005 was a warm up. What we're hoping to do up in North Carolina this year, and hopefully start getting the indictments issued on these people for the conspiracy to overthrow the United States government. And so people are saying, was there going to be any justice out of this? Well, I'm assuming so, because a 25-year run in exchange for the surrender of that hydrogen bomb expired on January 28, 2023. It is 2026, and a lot of people are not happy to know that we're about to go into possibly World War III with this attack on Iran. So people are wanting some accountability. And when we start going in and digging into this, we're going to find out there's blood on both political aisles over this. They had plotted to kill Governor James Hunt if they had pulled off the attacks the morning of January 29th that they pulled off and detonate that hydrogen bomb over there at Cook Ridge when they wanted to, that they was going to send a truck bomb up there and blow him up.
Hi, Carly.
Around
Good to see
February
you.
the 2nd of 98. So there was a plot even to kill, duly elected Democratic governor, member of the Democratic Party. So, even though I have conservative values, it's a crying shame that I've had a lot more Republicans trying to kill me. John Ramsey, he's registered Republican. Nancy Schaefer, she was Republican. Rick, he was conservative. And I think Ed Bentley Jr. and Randall Bentley Sr. and all that bunch, they're all registered Republicans. I know that Newt Gingrich, right across him in a restaurant, Marietta Square there one time, and he voiced his opinion how he didn't like the way I handled the situation up in North Carolina. But in 2005, during the rallies there, Marietta Square and Georgia State Capitol, I ran across him again, and he complimented, and he said he was impressed with what I was doing, and he liked it. So, I don't know what to think about old Newt, but, Newt's fully aware of the stuff. He has to be.
How do you want, if anybody wants to have you on their channel, as long as it's their respectful channel? I know you're going to be picky on whose channel you'll go on and who interviews you, you know what I mean? But you would love for other people to help get the word out about these predators, right?
Well, of course, because, I've always worked off of word of mouth advertisement business. One of the reasons why I'm alive is word of mouth advertisement over one, how I got dragged into this mess and how I went out and, shut it down without, really breathing a word to the FBI about it, so to speak. Yeah, they helped me some, and I appreciate their help. But I dang sure don't appreciate the cold shoulder that I've been getting since that invasion at my house in 2013.
No.
And but I'm afraid we're going to find out there was 2 agents that got killed over that.
And I'm glad that you ended up having the camera on your car, backup cam, and all that when they stopped this other person that was driving your vehicle. It's kind of weird when they see your tag and know that it goes in your name, and the person in charge of the thing happens to be Randall Bentley. But it's kind of funny how the police did not have their camera going, nor the police officer, when he went up and approached the window, he did not have that on either. So had it been Charles, we don't know. They might have killed him. No telling what. Y'all, please continue to pray for me and pray for Charles Rogers as well, since they keep trying to do things to him, and pray for his buddy that keeps getting stopped and stuff like that just because of affiliation, right?
Yeah, we wanted to see how many law enforcement out here would actually stop my vehicle. So we did a little survey and let him drive it, and that vehicle has been stopped over 7 times.
They said, I can't even go anywhere.
Believe it or not, you're talking, they even falsely accused of smelling like marijuana, searched it, and they couldn't even find it in Forsyth County. Now, there was explosives recovered for the baseball fields. These Little League baseball games in Gwinnett County, Forsyth, Dawson, Hall, Well, even Habersham,
How that y'all,
you know,
how they
quite.
came up to your property also and said that y'all were, what's that called, squatters, and
Yeah,
yet
squatting
y'all
in my
live
own
there.
house.
And they said, huh?
Squatting in my own house. So now they're
Exactly.
getting.
And they said that the guy next door reported it, and kind of find out y'all talked to that guy and they didn't. So they were just trying to do, and they made you stay overnight in jail or so. I don't know how long they had you in there, and it was a fake
I
arrest.
talked to one of the neighbors, and they said that they had been stalking this house for 2 weeks. So they knew that the previous homeowner had sold it because of his purchase it back in June.
Plus plus Eric had it
The
recorded.
clerk's office for Superior Court for Deed and Records is across the hall from Civil Division of the Sheriff's Department.
Plus, Eric had it recording about when the police officer said you got you a good one when you got Charles.
Well, yeah, and they wanted to know if they knew me from somewhere, and I didn't think about the possibility that they might have been part of the officers that they got the explosives from over there in Sugar Hill back in '98, because they looked too young, really, which they could have been in their 20s then. But I couldn't think of any reason why I hadn't seen them anywhere before.
Right.
But they said I looked familiar, and I sat there and told them who I was. And that didn't make any difference. They thought they really had them, so they really had them a real one here. Okay, well, they do.
And I think it's kind of funny at the same time when you were fixing to go to Washington, right?
Yes, we were gearing up to head up to Washington the following morning to go up meet with Chris Ray.
So they put a stop to it.
They knew that we were planning a trip to Washington, and it's like Gerald Couch. He just got fired, I think, last week or 2 weeks ago as sheriff of Hall County. But just one of Nancy Schaefer's associates has had her second collision, suspicious collision, and on the 27th February. Well, Gerald Couch has already received notice that I'm taking him to court. So somebody winds up following this associate and T-boned their automobile. They were in the hospital there in Gainesville.
Well, seems like they just keep on and keep on, because, that's what they did. They chased Matt Darrington and Beth Ramsey's vehicle, trying to get them to wreck, and, which they both died. Then they was going after Paula, and she ended up dying in a wreck too. And but they chased after you, and you got them. You pulled some maneuvers.
Yeah, I mean that's one of their old tactics of getting rid of people is get to chasing them in the rain, and they come along, and a big old delivery truck drives over into them. And they'll usually try to swerve and go off the road and hit a tree.
So it could be the same with buses.
Make it look like they were just traveling too fast for conditions. Matt Darrington never would drive in the rain with his girlfriend with him. He would drive in the rain by himself, no problem. But as long as Beth was with him, he didn't care.
Except for that one day.
Well, they weren't driving. They were actually found at a motel, I believe, by my brother and Roger Nance and Frank Floyd and my cousin Robert and Judge McLaughlin, and they proceeded in an automobile chase.
That's what I'm saying.
But I know I had my confrontation with John Andrew and 5 of his buddies back in 2006 after I sent those 3 boys to the ICUs, one over there at Papa Do's on Windy Hill Road. After I met with that agent, we decided to have Epstein arrested and found out where Jeff Carrier was hanging out at, which was at the Papa Do's on Windy Hill Road in Marietta. So, of course, I drove over there and wanted to go in there and have a little talk with him. And when I did, and he saw me very pink, man, I'll never forget the expression on his face. Him and Steve go both. I was like, hot dang diggy dog. Look at what the dog's dragged in. And then, he looked at old Steve Gold, this other guy behind me, said, well, just take him out and get rid of him. And so, boy, it was about every bit of 6'2", 6'3". Not a real big muscled up guy, but he definitely towered me. Come walking up there with a big old smirk on his face like he was going to do something smart, like snatch me. And he got to meet my right knuckle sandwich right to the doggone cheekbone and jaw. And I knocked that smirk off his face, had that wonder boy look, grabbing the rail behind him before he fell and hit the floor.
Man, I wish I could have been a fly on the wall.
Yeah. So he had to spend 4 or 5 days in ICU at Cobb General. About a month after that, I had 2 more confront me in an establishment called Chico Deals off of Sandy Plains Road in Marietta, coming there. And three guys I grew up with, buddies that I grew up with, sitting there and watched the whole thing. And these were not the type of guys that you will want to cross the path with either. But these 2 guys come in there. I was standing by myself. It's just, figure I'd stop in and have a beer, see if I could find some, Ozzie Johnson and his family in there. His wife used to drive school buses with my aunt, and I went to school with one of his sons. And so I was considered myself friends of the Johnsons. But they wasn't in there, so I was standing by myself. Just got my first sip off of beer. These 2 guys come walking up and said, Charles Rogers, you're going with us. I was like, really? Where? You don't worry about that. You'll find out when we get there. And I said, well, if you're not telling me where I'm going, I ain't going. Oh, you're not going? I said, no. Oh, you're going whether you want to or not. I said, who's going to make me? Oh, we'll make you. I said, you and whose army? Oh, we got plenty of people in here, a little half of us. I said, you got those 3 sitting over there at that table, and they said, yeah, why do you better than that? And I said, well, if I'm going to have to fight you in the whole bar, let's go, boys. So, of course, Baldy, he threw the first punch, so I had to hit him with a left, push the other one back from coming up behind me, spin around. When he got back up, hit him with a right, knocked him out. As the other one come up from behind, I just turned around and punched him, boxed him back to the pool table, hit him with a right, sent him spinning down, hit him with another right, spinning down again, hit him in the back of the head. He spun around and landed on the back of his head.
That's the one that died, right?
That's the one who succumbed to his injuries. And about 2 weeks after that, I was coming up Interstate 75, getting off on the Highway 5 connector there at Marietta. And I was cruising around 55 miles an hour. I wasn't in a big hurry to go anywhere. I was just on my way home from cleaning upholstery all day. And I noticed a lot of 5 cars behind me, and none of them would pass. And people like to fly through their 65, 70 mile an hour, 10 miles over the speed limit at least. And I struck that as odd. None of those guys wanted to pass me. So I got up, made a right on Sandy Plains Road. They all made a right on Sandy Plains. So I got up the old Kent Road, made a right, and they all made a right on Kent Road. So I pulled into the Dairy Queen. Well, they pulled into Dairy Queen, so I pulled around back out. So I decided to go to this establishment called The Place. They're in a little shopping center there um, by the cigar tobacco place, Place Lounge. I knew a lot of people in there. They had pretty much had closed up Chico Deals after the incident happened over there. So everybody from Chico Deals was going over to the place then. Well, sure enough, the three buddies that was in Chico Deals was also in the place that evening. So I went ahead and pulled in, went inside and walked up to the bar where the bartenders and waitresses and all them were, sitting there talking to them when John Andrew and five of his buddies came in, and they kind of moved out to the bar to find them a place to sit or stand.
Uh-huh.
Two of them went over to a wall there by the restroom, close to the restroom door. And he came up and got him a chair at a table and sat down and just sat there and stared at me while I was sitting there talking with the bartenders and the waitresses. And, which I wasn't, getting a drink or anything that night. I was just sitting there talking to them. And, so I decided to get a beer and go over there and sit down at the table with him, find out what his problem is, who he was. I didn't recognize him. And, he was 16 years old the night that they killed those two black teenage boys. So that was the only time that I saw him was that night. I'd never seen him since. But I knew he kind of looked familiar in a way. I just couldn't place who he was. So one of the waitresses, Charles, that guy over there is just standing there staring at you like a creep. I looked over, sure enough, he wouldn't take his eyes off him. He just sat there and stared.
Was that John Andrew?
Yeah, that was John Andrew. So I went ahead and grabbed the beer and went walking over there, pulled out a chair and sat right down in front of him. And I said, do you stare at everybody like that where you go? No. I said, did your mama ever teach you it's improper to stare at people and rude? Yeah, improper and rude to stare at people like that. They be talking about my mom. I said, well, what are you going to do? Whoop my ass? And maybe worse than that. It's like, really? I said, well, who are you? Well, I'm not telling you. I said, well, we can do this the easy way, or we can do it the hard way. You could either tell me, or I can get it out of you the hard way. Now, which way is it going to be? Well, he's friends with my sister. Okay, that really tells me a lot. I said, I'm friends with a lot of guys' sisters. So who in the hell with you? Who in the hell are you? Well, I'm Beth Ramsey's younger brother. So right when I stood up, I'm supposed to chase him out of the bar. Also, all of his buddies can come chasing out after me out through the parking lot where they all can snatch me up.
They was waiting on you to do that, huh?
So right when he runs out the door, I stopped. I turn around. Jimmy Lee and Tony, they already had two of them backed up. The two was coming up after me. They stopped. One started pushing his buddy back up against the wall. As I was going over toward them, he's sitting there and holding him. He goes, man, he will kill you. I'm like, buddy, he don't believe you. Let him loose and I'll make a firm believer of him.
You sound almost like John Wayne when you said it that time. Your voice said
So anyway, Jimmy and them, they wanted to cream them. They wanted to just go ahead and teach those boys a lesson. Now, I went up to the one that they had backed up against the disc jockey's booth there. And I said, we can send you boys to the emergency room right now. He goes, yeah, I'm aware of that. I said, I don't want any bad blood between you and my buddies, so if we let you guys walk out of here without getting hurt, are we going to have to worry about you and your buddies again? No, if you let us walk out of here, you'll never see us again. You'll never have another problem out of us again. And Jimmy and them, they couldn't believe I did that. And I told them, I said, y'all don't want to get tied up in this fight. I said, because they'll keep coming after you till they do get you.
So who was that started like going after you in a way, and really you had told them something about them really being pedophiles, so that you're not the pedophile, but they are, the other people?
Oh, yeah, that was back in 99 or 2000. I was down on Buford Highway. You got to remember, Access Graphics.
What job had you had, right?
Located just there at Interstate 285 and Buford Highway there in Goreville. So I was actually stopping to get a funnel. I had a rent center. I had to go do some work that day. So I had to stop and go in and get a funnel from Cleaning Solutions. And I just parked my vehicle, walked over to the walked over to the sidewalk. I think there was a bar right there at the end of the building when I walked over. And this guy comes walking up to me from the front, another one walking up from behind me. And I just stopped and I looked at both. Something just told me they were about to confront me physically. And they're like, you Charles Rogers? And yeah, where you going with us? I was like, really? What? You going to whoop my ass? That's one thing I can't stand worse than a cold-blooded murder is a doggone pedophile. Which one of you boys want it first? We ain't no pedophiles. Oh, really? Well, what are you doing confronting me if you're not a doggone pedophile? Well, we were sitting over here by that little John Bonet girl's dad and his buddy Monty. I said, well, I know they're pedophiles. Where are they at? Oh, they're parked over there in the gray Buick station wagon, and Monty's parked next to him in his black Volvo. I said, hell, let's go get them, boys. These guys are supposed to be snatching me.
Right.
John looks out and sees them coming behind me with the other guys behind them. It's like we're all coming toward him. He cranks up. He was parked facing out. Monty was pulled and facing behind him. So they both pulled out and took off. Monty goes south on Buford Highway. John made a left and was coming up Buford Highway, going north, and hollered out, I'm going to go ahead and say, excuse my explicities, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to get you one of these days, you son of a bitch.
Oh, boy. Which one said that?
So I had to sit there and explain to these two guys, how they could avoid getting found. I just pretty much told them, you just go find you a little small town, get you a job, pays cash under the table. Don't get any utilities or anything, cable or anything in your name, and just work your job, stay low. If you have to walk everywhere to not get stopped, to where your name gets run through. Do that for around 3 or 4 years, and they will give up. If you don't say anything, you don't know anything, they're going to give up and come and look for you. You know, because all you did is back out of abducting somebody. I said they'll probably forget your name in 5 years.
Yeah, because they got too many that abducts, you know.
Yeah, but they, you know, they just, I kind of felt sorry for them because, you know, what they were being told, this is one of the lies that Roger Nance and my brother Fred, and of course that bunch over Cobb County, would tell people, you know, I supposedly stole $3,500 worth of stuff from some guy, turned around and got a bus about the police for marijuana. Selling marijuana. That's what they had told the guys that they had put to watch me at Piedmont Hospital after I escaped Fred's automobile on July the 7th of 2001. After I got Craig Manier, Roger Nance, to admit that they were the two that killed John Benet Ramsey.
So they did admit it to you?
They did admit it. You know, Craig, he's a distant relative of Jill Robinson. He's from Flint, Michigan. He's a former CEO of Home Depot Corporation.
By the way, we call him Big Bird.
Yeah, that's why he's called Big Bird.
Okay, I'm fixing to show you his picture so you'll see why we call him Big Bird. Look at his head. Look at it. His head is not shaped like that. Look at there.
He's 275 pounds, about 6'3", of pure 100% muscle mouth.
Okay, excuse me, because I thought I had several pictures of Craig Manier, but I guess I didn't.
Well, I could see what Marilyn Parkman, why Marilyn Parkman, Levi Frady's mother, described him the way he is just by looking at him. You know, I guess his wife, she must be nearsighted or got bad eyesight. Don't know what her issues with, or was just pure desperate. Can't find another man. I don't know if he even has a wife. Could be one of those transgender women or something like that.
But the thing about it is, you got to realize, like you said, a lot of the serial killers can be some of the sweetest people in the world.
Well, yeah, and you know, I definitely think he's got sugar in the blood, like the rest of them. You know, what they do to these little boys is terrible. What they do, what they do to children is terrible, but especially little boys. And Craig, he was involved. Well, according to him, he's the one who had control of the throat, choking John Benet, and he let it too loose, and she screamed out and started screaming in pain, and Roger hit her in the head with a sheetrock hammer twice to shut her up. But the two of the guys that they had watched me at Piedmont Hospital after the next day, and after escaped Fred's automobile, which of course I got Big Bird to admit that he was involved in the abduction of Levi Frady. That's how I got his admissions out of John Benet, was letting him know I knew he was involved in the abduction of Levi. And I didn't. I was suspicious to see if he was the right guy. And he did. He turned around and admitted that he helped in the abduction of Levi. But I believe him when he says that he's a distant relative of Jill Robinson. But I know that he did not pick the date to murder John Benet, because John told Beth that night when he was going to have John Benet murdered.
Right.
But
And no matter what Epstein said about him not being there, he actually was.
Well, the morning of March 11th, 1997, there was 14 attacks that was going to be carried out along the Buford Highway corridor there in Doraville, Chamblee, Georgia.
Uh-huh.
Among those attacks was 3 truck bombs. One was intended for the IRS building.
Uh-huh.
The second one was intended for the Martyrs train station, thereby Excess Graphics, and the General Motors assembly plant across the railroad tracks from Excess Graphics.
Can y'all tell them why he wanted to do that over there? Basically, to get their children, right?
One more time.
Reason why they wanted to do that, especially at GM, was to try to get their kids, do something to the people that work there. But
Well, if they had hit all the targets, you had backpack explosive charges they were going to plant at the field to exit the Peachtree DeKalb Airport. The fuel farm, Mansfield Oil, where Eric Kiss drove the tankers for. Fuel for. That's where they stored the jet fuel for Delta Airlines before they added on to Hartsfield Jackson Airport and moved the fuel tanks down there.
Right.
They were going to hit the Marigas main distribution center there, where the precinct of the Chamblee Police Department is built today with Part 5. That's where the Marigas used to be.
I want to remind everybody that you see the QR code. You do scan the QR code, and that's the link to my book.
But John, he had him some special gear in his office that morning over there at Excess Graphics. I think it was some type of shrapnel vest and stuff like that he had on, and in case the debris came over there and hit his building, he was going to be protected. But John was sitting over there in his office that morning expecting to hear all these explosions go off around him. And he didn't get to hear one of them.
Yeah.
I was held captive over there at the Rent-A-Center just south of 285, which was one of 3 Rent-A-Centers along that corridor at that time. And we were held in there for almost 2 hours and 45 minutes. Truck bomb number 3 that was intended for the IRS building was parked in the shopping center from the Rent-A-Center, and of course the whole corridors from 1 mile north of 285 to 2 miles south was blocked off by law enforcement all the way over from Interstate 285 and 285, they call Spaghetti Junction, over to Peachtree Industrial Boulevard. All that was blocked off except for the northbound lane of Peachtree Industrial Boulevard.
Yeah.
That's why you can go to that area there, and people still talk about all these places the terrorists tried to blow up in 97, because there was a lot of targets a lot of attacks we stopped that year. Right. I have to say, Rick helped me stop, because he was very, very instrumental in keeping the media's attention away from Murphy, North Carolina, where I could get in touch with the right people I knew and shut this whole mess down. So that's that pretty much should cover everything everyone would like to know about the truth about Nancy Schaefer, Rick White, Richard Jewell, and Beth Ramsey and Matt Darrington.
Thank you for exposing
These people, especially Beth Ramsey and Matt Darrington, could not face the reality of being governed by a bunch of child murderers and pedophiles.
Right. And
they were willing to risk their lives, not just for John Bonet, but all these other children, because they did not want anyone else have to wake up one morning with a grim reality of exactly what kind of people we have governing over us.
And you see that John Andrew is following in his daddy's footsteps too, just like John Ramsey following in his daddy's footsteps.
Well, the funny thing, two of those guys that was working at the hospital, they put over there the next morning after I escaped Fred's automobile. They was working at this convenience store there at the corner of Buford Highway and Chambly Dunwoody Road, and they're remodeling this retail spot in that convenience store. And a backpack of explosives was set out there by the dumpster. And if it had detonated, it would have killed them and their entire crew. So they hired two of those guys to watch me at Piedmont Hospital to monitor my activities on July the 8th of 2001. So all I did was wait for them to come in the lobby. I knew they were going to have to come in and use the restroom anyway, sooner or later. And I went out there and I confronted them. They had been told that I stole $3,500 worth of stuff from some lame brain and got him busted for selling marijuana by the police. And then they were wanting to follow me back, that maybe I would lead them back to where all the stolen goods were at, where they could retrieve the stolen goods and go sell it and possibly bond their buddy out of jail. And, but it was funny. They were over there talking. There was these two older ladies in the lobby area. They're out there talking. Payphone sitting outside. I didn't have my cell phone because I ditched it in Fred's automobile before it escaped from the back seat. So I had no way to call. So I went over there, sat in front of those two ladies, and asked them if things got a little crazy over there, if they'd step outside and hit 911 on the payphone. And they said they would. One of them, he was dressed up like a cowboy, you know. Remember correctly, a black Western hat, you know, not brown Western hat, brown corduroy jacket, blue jeans, you know, button up shirt there. And when I went walking up to them, and I was like, well, howdy, fellas, how's it going? And they were like, well, you sure do have a lot of balls coming up here to confront us. I said, well, I've worked in Electrolux. Electrolux salesman got balls of steel. Cowboy, he was putting his hand in toward his shoulder holster, and I looked at him. I kind of pulled some of the scenes from some of the slogans from, you know, Tombstone on him. I said, better back the hand up from that smoke wagon before I drop you. And he looked at me real funny. I said, you don't think I'll drop him? Reach for that doggone smoke wagon. I'll drop you in a New York second. And they go, yeah. Up to you, you sure do. You sure do talk tough. I was like, yeah, I'm really badass when it comes to fighting pedophiles. You call us. I said, I didn't start it. What are you going to do about it? Whoop my ass? We ain't no pedophiles. I said, well, if you're not pedophiles, what are you doing here? What are you doing here watching me for? One goes, oh, you're calling your brother Fred a pedophile and Roger Nance a pedophile? I said, I'm not only calling them pedophiles, I'm calling them child rape and murder and domestic terrorists. And he looked at me real funny, terrorists. I'm like, yeah. You don't remember the attacks they tried to do over there in Doraville back in 97? Yeah, we were over there working in the convenience store, and a backpack of explosives was set over there, could have killed us. That's why at least you know who you're working for.
What'd they say to that?
Well, they were on my side. Cowboy, he wanted to go talk to Manier because I sat there and told him that Manier, you know, they admitted to murdering Levi Freddy and John Bonet. And Cowboy said he was going to go talk with Craig Manier. I said, well, do me a favor while you're at it. He goes, what's that? So you tell that Craig guy that I'm over here talking all kinds of nasty stuff about his parents, calling his mother a prostitute, his dad a homosexual gigolo, and they got doped up one night and had sex, and he was an accident. And tell him he don't have the guts to come over here and fight me one-on-one. And he laughed. He goes, you want me to tell Craig Menier to come over here and fight you? I'm like, yeah. They thought that was funny. It's like, well, I'll go tell him. And the other two was like, you seriously think you're going to fight Craig Menier? I said, he comes over here, I'll stomp his ass all over the front of this doggone building. You don't believe me? Wait till he gets here. They didn't know about the guys that I had already sent to the ICUs up in Murphy and Cleveland, Georgia. They didn't know about that. They didn't know about them hiring that big wrestler to come over there to Murphy and put on this big show. They didn't know that.
Yeah, and he expected you to run.
I mean, I'm soaking wet. I was, what, 170 pounds soaking wet, 5'11" versus 275 pounds solid muscle bodybuilder Craig Menier, 6'3", 6'4". Well, that wrestler I sent running up there, Murphy, was bigger than him.
Yeah, he was scared. He just tried to intimidate you, and then when you didn't run, he ran.
Oh yeah, he did. It was funny. That's why we call him Big Bird.
So that was him at the time?
Huh?
So that was Craig Menier at the time?
The one that showed up over there and the fight me and put on the big show. And when I started running, charging the ward and took off running. That's where he earned the nickname Big Bird. All the elite in Atlanta would not let him live that up for a while, but people would tell him, well, you really can't blame him. He had good reason. Rogers would have killed him.
Oh, boy.
So,
we've been over there over 2 hours, and I think you did you say just about everything that you think you needed to say? And if you did, could you give us a general idea on what you would like to talk about next? There's one lady that she asked you, and somebody asked you this the last time you did a live about, did you know anything about the Girl Scouts, the 3 that were murdered in Oklahoma?
I heard out of McRae up there that they were involved in that, Doug McRae. But I kind of have my doubts looking into the dialogue of the Girl Scout murders there in Oklahoma. I'm not going to say they weren't. I heard that the Cook brothers were initiated into all that, but the guy that was primarily the fall guy, he was Cherokee. And to my understanding, he did roam up there around Murphy, North Carolina, some back in the day. So there is the potential connection there. I've not ruled it out, but I'm not willing to sit here and make it gospel and say that they are.
Yeah, you don't have the
I
proven
mean,
facts.
I believe the same people involved here are the same ones that murdered Libby German and Abigail Williams out there in Delphi, Indiana. I really believe it's the same bunch. The footprint is quite similar. Those little girls, they were murdered near a river, near a body of water that could wash away the evidence. There's an old closed down building of Child Protective Services people believe was used. Just like Rick White or Richard Jewell explained to me out there at Piedmont College that day that they was using an old DFAX building, local law enforcement, sex trafficked children. There is what got him and Nancy Schaefer killed. So I believe they're just as responsible for the Delphi murders as they are the others, but I'm not ready to rule out the Girl Scout murders. I've never been ready to rule it out, but I really don't have much of anything except for one admission, and that is Doug McRae.
And sometimes they'll say that they did something just to try to stir you up.
Well, yeah. See if you'll go out and jump conclusions.
And then make it look like you're crazy because you said it.
I want to see if I go running out there, running through the law, running my mouth, and accusing them about something that they didn't do. You always have to sort through this stuff like a fine tooth comb here. You just don't know what is true and what is false until you're able to sort through it and you find out that it's true. Now, I know for a fact that John Ramsey and Frank Sheldon and all of them are involved in the Oakland County child murders because I met Frank Sheldon in 72 and 73 in Marietta. He told me he's going to go up and develop around Detroit, Michigan. He was from Wisconsin. And, he was part of the grooming process with the Bentleys to get me over there doing some things with Alice Summer when she was 5 to 6 years old. So I know they murdered the children up there in Oakland County. I know they were involved in the Atlanta child murders because I went down there and saw it myself. So I know that.
Yeah, that gremlin-looking car, looked a lot like the vehicle you described was Doug McRae's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember Doug having that car when he first opened up Colonial Plaza up there, and Radio Shack was one of the first businesses to open up.
And then I know a lot of people say, well, you got this information, and why didn't you tell people? I'll let you answer that, right?
Well, there's nobody else in charge of the Oklahoma City and Centennial Park bomb case but me. Even the FBI doesn't have that case anymore. I have it.
Okay, what I'm saying
So
is,
the only people that I answer to is the General Assembly of the state of North Carolina and Congress.
okay, what I'm talking about is like, since they kind of finding you do like the John, that Jill Robinson murder and all this other kind of stuff, I thought you went ahead and you did tell these people and they're not doing anything about it.
Well, of course not. That's not their case. The cases in these child murders is nothing in comparison to the charges that they're facing in the state of North Carolina. And we will get finished in North Carolina what Uncle Sam is supposed to do to them. There's probably not a one. There might be one, maybe 2 or 3 that might escape the death penalty and may get off with life without possibility of parole. But from the crimes against humanity that these people are guilty of, conspiracy to overthrow the government of the United States, a plot to murder an elected governor of the state, these are death penalties. That was 167 people out there that was killed in the bombing of the Alfred B. Murrah Federal Building. And if they had not had a 263-pound hydrogen bomb, all this would have gone down in 98. If it did not involve the Mossad, these oligarchs, and everybody tied to, as I say, the last 5 presidents and Jeff Epstein would be one thing. But we are talking about the very people who runs the financial system in this country, the very people who makes our weapons and our arms for our military and for Israel. You're talking people that is in the same pedophile network as Benjamin Netanyahu and Jeff Epstein themselves. They have other world leaders that are involved in their network in other countries. The United States is not the only one. We know if you ever want to evade criminal prosecution for child molestation, child rape, murder, or any of that, just go to Israel and declare yourself an Israeli citizen, and they will not extradite introduce you back to your country.
You got other people that keeps telling you, everybody's been saying Happy Easter to all of us. So, I hope you tell everybody Happy Easter.
Well, happy Easter, everyone. I'm going to take a look here at some of these. Yeah, we're finding connections of these guys to the Boy Scouts, and I'm aiming to secure some more for the Boy Scouts because a buddy of mine has just been awarded with a large sum of money from the lawsuit for being in the Boy Scouts and for being victimized when he was a child. So we aim to see about getting the Boy Scouts more money out of this recent settlement. They're supposed to be distributing the checks now that the certain other plaintiffs decided not to press forward and try to get more money. But Frank Sheldon, he was tied to the Boy Scouts. Believe that by the time it's all over, we're going to find quite a few more of them, like Doug McGray and some of the Styles and up there in Murphy, tied to the Boy Scouts, and we should be able to get the Boy Scouts more money if they've run out if the church and the other parties that are been ordered to pay run out of money. Hopefully, we're going to get them more money by the time we get finished with Home Depot, Murphy Build Supply, BlackRock, all these big wigs that are involved in all this.
Here's Francis Sheldon right here when he was younger, and he did not die in Amsterdam, is what his thing said, because he showed back up and, was it North Carolina he showed back up after he was supposedly dead in Amsterdam?
After they lost that death wager, Frank, him and Andrea Strassmeyer and Dave Holloway decided they were going to kill me, showed up out there going to kill me. So now they're all three dead. That's why we call him the dead zombie, because he had faked his death in New Amsterdam, July the 9th, 1996, and obtained a fake death certificate. Of course, Holloway and Strassmeyer were out there with him, flagged to avoid criminal prosecution for the bombing of the Appleby Murray Federal Building.
And here's I'm fixing to show him another picture.
That's why Holloway and Strassmeyer, they're buried in Elohim City, and Frank is buried in North Carolina.
Okay, here's a picture, older picture of the Francis D. Sheldon. He is the one that did North Fox Island, people.
One of the nicest guys. My dad thought he was a good old boy, taught him how to develop land in 72 and 73. And we see what he used his skills for.
Yeah. And he had a Harvard degree or something like that as well, didn't he?
Yes, and he was also an heir to the, I think it was the Edsel Motor Company, the family that had it. So,
wow.
he ran into some money. He was a fly boy with Air National Guard. John Ramsey's dad was a decorated war pilot from World War II.
Wow, Jay Ramsey.
Jay Ramsey.
Yeah, Jay Ramsey actually did the landing strip or something like that for North Fox Island or something.
Well, he helped him get the funding. He approved the permits. He inspected it, and after it was completed, he retired shortly thereafter.
And probably was frequented over there at the North Fox Island.
Well, you can only imagine. I mean, how many were? You're talking Christopher Bush, the son of H.L. Bush, the CEO of General Motors. And, Ted Turner. I mean, these people that are involved in this stuff, they're rich, and people in their churches are well off, and that Dyer Grossman, was his alias, came out and since they had the 501c status and all that for the Brother Paul's summer camp for youth, and which was their product, that is all that information is available online. Anyone can look it up. It's there, and you just go in and get a real good general idea exactly what all is entailed in these islands. Even David Copperfield, he's under scrutiny right now about some of the activities on his island. And of course, we know after 1998, what Jeff Epstein and them, we got a good idea of what they were doing down there on the island, St. James. But Jeff Epstein was just as much involved in the Norfolk Island pedophile ring just as much as Frank Sheldon was involved in his.
And that's what Frank Sheldon had something to do with the Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
Didn't Frank Sheldon or some have connections with the Boy Scouts?
I believe they did, and that was one reason why they had that summer camp, was also the uses by the Boy Scouts. And you don't have to be a scoutmaster to be affiliated with the Boy Scouts to be held liable for what the Boy Scouts were held for. All you have to be is in partnership with them, and that gets the Boy Scouts more money. And that's what we're going to shoot for this year. I never was in the Boy Scouts. But my buddy was, and he was victimized when he was a child, and we still wonder if that's the reason why his parents died in an automobile accident when he was 11 years old, because it was during rainy conditions.
That makes sense. And that was up north, right?
Yes, ma'am. I was up in New York. And so we're wondering if there might have been some fishy, but his parents had I think it was either a big old Lincoln or Cadillac that they had a collision with instead of a big old truck. But they could have had a collision with an automobile before they got to the truck they were supposed to hit with, for all we know. We know best friend Paula, January of '97, they located her down in Atlanta and got to chasing her in her little Geo, and a MARTA bus pulled out in front of her, and she lost her life, in a collision with it before she got to the truck she was supposed to collide with. So, I used to practice stunt driving when I turned 18, pulling the Jim Rockford stunt on the Rockford Files, spinning that automobile back and whipping the front around, putting it in drive and going on, and it saved my life. Even though some of them knew how to do it themselves, it still didn't stop me from playing chicken with them.
One time I was chased, and I'm glad that I survived it, because the fact is I had never turned a curve so fast, to go down another road right quick to avoid. and I was up on 2 wheels.
Yeah.
And that scared the heck out of me.
Yeah.
I'm just thank you, Lord, for me not flipping and everything else. I guess I did something right to get it to go back. And didn't flip it. So, oh man.
Well, I always tell people if you feel like somebody's chasing you, best thing to do is to pull into a crowded area.
I lived in the country, so there wasn't many crowded areas where I lived.
Yeah, but if you can't pull into a crowded area, pull a Jim Rockford a couple times to play chicken with these people. It is better to collide with another automobile, or if you're in a pickup truck with a pickup truck, than it is to collide with a big old former UPS truck, bakery truck, or one of these big delivery trucks.
I'm just glad he
So
didn't try
that's
to
one of
turn.
their most favorite. That's one of their most favorite tactics to get rid of somebody. That's how they try to get rid of me down in lower Alabama from 94 to 96. And, I was just I have really good driving skills. I learned how to drive in the North Georgia mountains and in the city. So I know how to take curves, higher speeds than most people are used to taking curves. I learned how to drive on Highway 180 in Georgia, one of the most deadliest roads in the state of Georgia. This Highway 180, such as Georgia over toward Blairsville, Georgia, Vogel State Park in that area.
Welcome back, Carlene.
Uh,
I told Carlene, welcome back. She said she's back.
But I'm going to have to sum it up here. Appreciate you having me on your show. And I hope this answers a lot of people's questions. And I hope everybody starts spreading word around. The more people finds out about this, sooner we can get this conference going up in North Carolina, which is the final stage of this mission. Because I want to show that these guys don't have the guts of Barry Murphy to turn themselves in and admit to their crimes. I don't think they're going to do it. A lot of people don't think they're going to do it. But I don't think there's a manly bone in their body. One. They're two cowards.
But I still
Too
have.
greedy, and they think they're above the law. And right now they have been, but now everything's coming out. American people are ready for accountability, and I'm ready to give it to them.
I still laugh about when that little bitty girl ended up getting John Ransom right in the nuts and escaped. I still laugh about that.
But yeah, and every time I ever seen him, I always said, "What's the guy that got his ass whooped by the 11-year-old blonde?" And he gets mad. But he's the one that told. He's the one who told the story.
Yeah, he was bragging about it,
Well, no, he wasn't bragging about that. It's just Fred and Roger wanted to know if anything had come of the case yet.
Huh?
And he said he had his friends up in Washington looking into it and thinking nothing would come of it. So they asked him what happened again, and he sat there and he explained it. And he wasn't proud at all that she got away. It was kind of embarrassing.
The bad thing
I
is
know
that
I would have
girl
been embarrassed if I tried to do something like to an 11-year-old girl and she whooped my doggone butt. I'd be embarrassed to tell the story too.
And what year was that about when that happened?
Oh, this was right after I met him. 1983 over there by Leighton Graphics.
Oh, okay.
There in Marietta. He told the story about the children he murdered, Jill Robinson and all that. Fred and Roger and them were laughing, and then when he turned around and you know, told them what happened there, that's when I pretty much told them, shoot, I'm not even 18 years old. That means I could whoop your ass from here to Tip-Top Poultry with one hand tied behind my back.
And he said the only reason why she got good ground is because he didn't remove her tennis shoes.
Tennis shoes. Yeah, she was able to gain footing in the floorboard. That was see, John always liked station wagons. That one, he said, was a Mercedes station wagon. The one I met him, he was driving was a Volvo, little gray Volvo station wagon. The one that him and Monty, he was driving when him and Monty tried to have me snatch there on Buford Highway, was a great Buick LeSabre station wagon. So John's always loved his station wagons. I assumed he's going to the SUVs, but before they became popular, his vehicles of choice was station wagons.
And I want to reiterate and bring something to people's mind too before we go. That John actually did he tell that? Who did he tell that when he kills them that he's going to end up? But he's the devil himself, that he's going to rule over their souls the rest of their life.
Well, that's what he told the Beth in order to get her back for betraying him, being over John Bonet. That he was going to have John Bonet murdered. Okay, so he would have control of Beth's soul for eternity. That was his words. So they can call him delusional schizophrenic if they want to. I don't know. He may be Satan himself. He believes he is, and don't have any way to prove him wrong.
Satan and his minions over there, huh?
Mm-hmm. But again, thank you everybody for listening, and thank you all for your support, and thank you for supporting Miss Clark in her channel and her mission. And she is one of quite a few ladies that I have spoken to that is a survivor of this particular network. She's not the only victim that has been put through the MK Ultra system, and I'm confident there's going to be more victims besides with just her situation and Jeff Epstein that are going to be coming forward. There's more victims than what even the Department of Justice realized. There are way more victims than what a lot of people anticipate.
Can you imagine? And I really feel a lot for the male population. It's just because of the fact that they say you got to quit acting like a girl if you cry, right? Guys should be quiet. Guys should do this, be a man up, Get real. This is a young boy. Even if they're men when they get attacked, it don't matter. Attack is attack. I don't care what age. I don't care what gender you are. It is wrong to rape and violate somebody, okay? I don't care whether you're male or female. A kid does not deserve it either. If you're sick and twisted and you enjoy doing this to a child, how could you even think of them in a sexual way anyway, right? This is so perverted.
Well, it's just it's so ungodly. It's pure evil.
Exactly.
And
like I said, when my stepmom had the cult meetings in her backyard, some of them was probably there.
Mm-hmm.
Because the kids be in the cages in the backyard. Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for coming in, and happy Easter, everyone, and make sure you do some important things for yourself. If this really disturbed y'all tonight, sit apart sometime. Maybe don't watch no TV or something. Just kind of meditate, do something fun, get your mind on something fun, do something you haven't done in a long time. Treat yourself. You deserve it. Just remember, thank you so much, and you matter.
Thank you for sharing, and everybody have a good evening.
And I hope to see you back up here again soon, Charles. And you got any idea on what you would like to discuss your next time?
No, I think we about covered it all.
Yeah, but there's some more that still coming out, so who knows, right?
Yeah, there's no telling what something else pops up. I don't want to say too much. This case out there in the Texas killing fields, I recognize that guy.
Uh-huh.
Actually, both of them. And he does look like one of the drivers down there in Lower Alabama in the 90s that was helping chase me around. So we'll leave that at and see if anything else transpires out of that before I go out here and trying to jump the gun on that. I don't like to go out here and conclude anything unless I got at least one person to back me up.
Exactly. And I'm saying now y'all know a little bit more about John Andrew. And please, y'all leave Burke alone. Please, for the love of God, please. Well, thank y'all for coming, and God bless y'all.